went down a house or something, and I saw that the people were living on bare necessities I wouldn't take nothing.
In the heart of Tasmania sat a quiet place called Port Arthur. Surrounded by green hills and calm waters, it was once known for its old buildings and friendly people. Families came here to relax, tourists walked the paths, and children played in the sun. It was the kind of town where nothing bad was supposed to happen. But everything changed one sunny day in 1996. Without warning, a man walked into the town with a gun. No one knew what he was about to do. In a matter of minutes, peace turned into panic. People screamed and ran as shots rang out. The sound of laughter disappeared. In its place was fear, shock, and silence. This was not just another crime. It was the kind of event that scars a nation. The kind that people remember forever. Where they were, what they saw, and how they felt. For Australia, it marked the end of feeling safe in public spaces. Port Arthur would never be the same again. Neither would the country. What began as a normal day became the beginning of one of the darkest stories in Australia's history. And the whole world watched as a peaceful town was shattered in a moment of pure terror. The first shocking crime, the horror, began at the Broad Arrow Cafe, a popular spot where visitors sat enjoying lunch. Among them was a man no one paid much attention to. Blonde, quiet, carrying a bag. He ordered a meal, just like anyone else. But what happened next changed everything. Without warning, he pulled out a high-powered rifle and began shooting. In just seconds, peaceful moments turned into chaos. People fell where they sat. Some tried to run, others froze in disbelief. The cafe, once filled with the sound of chatter and clinking plates, was now filled with screams and gunfire. It didn't stop there. The man moved outside, walking calmly as he continued firing at anyone in sight. Cars were shot at, more lives were taken. His path of destruction seemed planned, but also random, cold, cruel, and unstoppable. In just over 30 minutes, 35 people were dead and dozens more injured. It became the worst mass shooting in Australia's history. The country, known for its peaceful towns and low crime, was left speechless. This single act of violence shocked the nation to its core. It wasn't just a crime, it was a wake-up call that something had to change. And quickly. Police began the hunt. As news of the shooting spread, emergency services rushed to the scene. Ambulances, police cars, and helicopters arrived in waves. What they found was heartbreaking: lives lost, people wounded, and a town frozen in fear. But one thing was clear: the gunman had escaped, and he was still armed. The police launched a massive manhunt across the region. Roads were blocked, homes were searched, and officers warned locals to stay indoors. Every second counted. The suspect, later identified as Martin Bryant, had fled the scene and taken hostages at a nearby property called Seascape. Police surrounded the area, knowing it could turn into a long and dangerous standoff. Bryant was unpredictable. He had already caused so much harm. What would he do next? Inside the house, gunshots were heard. The hostages' lives hung in the balance. For hours, tension filled the air. The media covered every moment, and the country watched in fear and anger. The police worked carefully, trying to avoid more loss of life. It wasn't just about capturing a killer. It was about protecting what was left. This was no longer just a crime scene. It was now a siege, and Australia held its breath, waiting for it to end. Nation watches in fear. As the standoff at Seascape continued, the entire nation was glued to their screens. News channels broadcast live updates. People across Australia sat in silence, watching and waiting. Fear had gripped the country like never before. Nobody could understand how such horror had come to a peaceful place. Questions filled every conversation. Who was this man? Why had he done this? And most of all, would he kill again before it ended? Schools, shops, and workplaces paused. Families hugged each other tighter. For many, it felt like the world had stopped. The gunfire from inside Seascape only deepened the fear. Police negotiators tried to speak with Bryant, but he refused to surrender. The night passed slowly, filled with dread and uncertainty. By morning, a fire broke out at the house. When the flames died, police moved in and found the suspect alive. But the hostages were gone. Australia had witnessed something unthinkable. A peaceful nation had been shaken to its core. And nothing would ever feel the same again. The suspect is found. When the fire at Seascape finally burned out, police moved in with extreme caution. Inside the ruins, they found Martin Bryant, burned injured, but alive. He was taken into custody without a fight. The siege was over, but the damage was already done. The bodies of the two hostages were found inside, confirming everyone's worst fears. The man responsible for the worst mass shooting in Australian history had finally been caught. Bryant was taken to the hospital under heavy guard. He didn't speak much at first, but the evidence was clear. Eyewitnesses, video, and forensic proof all pointed to him. The case was strong. The nation wanted justice. People wanted to know why. What had driven him to kill 35 innocent people? But there were no clear answers, only pain, confusion, and grief. With Bryant in custody, one chapter of horror had closed, but the next would begin in court. And Australia would soon learn even more disturbing details about the man behind the terror. Courtroom full of tears. When Martin Bryant faced the court, the mood was heavy. Families of the victims filled the courtroom, many holding back tears. Some couldn't even look at him. The pain was still fresh, the wounds still open. Bryant showed little emotion. He didn't speak much. But the evidence spoke for him, clear, strong, and heartbreaking. Witnesses described the horror they saw. Survivors told stories that shook everyone in the room. Then came the moment no one expected. Bryant pleaded guilty to all charges. There would be no trial, no long battle in court. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without any chance of release. For many, it brought a small sense of relief. Justice, at least, had been served. But no sentence could bring back what was lost. Tears flowed freely in the courtroom, not just for justice, but for the lives that would never be the same. The case had ended, but the pain would last forever. Truth behind the horror. As investigators dug deeper into Martin Bryant's life, the country searched for answers. Who was this man? What led him to commit such a brutal act? Bryant had a troubled past. He was often described as lonely, isolated, and socially awkward. Teachers and neighbors had noticed strange behavior from a young age. He struggled in school and had few friends. Some even said he enjoyed upsetting people just to get a reaction. Psychological reports later revealed he had an intellectual disability and possible mental illness. But experts agreed. Mental health alone could not explain the level of violence he had shown. There was no single reason, no clear trigger. It was a mix of deep personal struggles, access to powerful weapons, and a dangerous craving for attention. His obsession with past killers and violent acts also came to light. It became clear that he had planned parts of the attack, even if some actions seemed chaotic. The truth was hard to accept. Someone so broken had caused so much pain. And it happened without warning, in a place no one expected. Australia now knew the face of the monster. But understanding him didn't ease the sorrow. If anything, it raised more questions, and deepened the country's resolve to make sure this could never happen again. Australia demands change. After the tragedy, the people of Australia spoke with one voice. This must never happen again. Grief quickly turned into action. The public demanded stricter gun laws and the government listened. Just weeks after the attack, then, Prime Minister John Howard introduced major reforms. Semi-automatic rifles and shotguns were banned. Gun owners were required to register their weapons and meet strict safety rules. A nationwide buyback program was launched, and over 600,000 firearms were destroyed. It wasn't easy. Some opposed the changes, but most Australians supported the new laws, knowing it was the right thing to do. The horror of Port Arthur had opened everyone's eyes. These laws became some of the toughest in the world, and they worked. Mass shootings in Australia dropped sharply. The country had taken a stand. It had chosen safety over fear, unity over division. The memory of the victims fueled every step forward. What happened in Port Arthur would never be forgotten. But from the ashes of tragedy came real, lasting change. Proof that even the darkest moments can lead to light. A legacy of pain and loss. The Port Arthur massacre left behind more than just sorrow. It left a legacy that changed a nation forever. Families of the victims still carry the pain, their lives marked by a single day they can never forget. Memorials now stand in Port Arthur, quiet places where names are etched in stone and flowers are laid with care. Each year, people gather to remember. Some come in silence, others with tears. The site has become sacred, a reminder of lives lost and the strength of those left behind. But the legacy is also one of action. Australia's gun laws remain some of the strongest in the world. Politicians often point to them as proof of what real leadership can do. The changes made after Port Arthur saved lives and continue to protect future generations. The massacre also sparked global conversations about violence, mental health, and weapon control. Other countries look to Australia as an example of how tragedy can lead to meaningful reform. Though nothing can erase the horror, the legacy of Port Arthur is one of courage, unity, and change. A scar that became a symbol of heartbreak, of healing, and of hope.